Hello, welcome to Technically Analytics. In this episode, we're going to be going over the AL East division. We're going to be starting with the Boston Red Sox, who went 78 and 84, 23 games behind the Baltimore Orioles in first place. So the Red Sox lineup is looking a little bit different than last year. They brought up some new guys. They did a trade, which is good to see. So they're starting off with Jarren Duran, Rafael Devers, Trevor Story, Tristan Casas, Matsuzuka Yoshida, Tyler O'Neill, Sedame Rafaela, Emmanuel Valdez, Connor Wong. So overall, I do like their lineup. They did lose Justin Turner to the Blue Jays from free agency, but other than that, I do like the addition of Tyler O'Neill. I think he was a great addition. He could definitely bring some power to the lineup and replace what Turner was lost with Justin Turner leaving. And then of course, you like the top few guys, and then after, or especially the middle, like from Devers to O'Neill. I like all those guys. They all give pretty decent output in terms of like power on base and all that. You can see their projections here, but it's the bottom of the lineup that I'm kind of questioning because those guys are kind of unproven. Only one has a year of experience, and altogether they have less than 2 years overall. So, yeah, there's some question marks in the back of the lineup, and that's not the only problem with this team. But, yeah, gonna be some questionable offensive production, that's for sure. So the Red Sox bench is made up of Reese McGuire at catcher, CJ Cron, Pablo Reyes, and Rob Refsnyder. So overall, I do actually like the bench. I think the biggest bench piece is going to be CJ Cron. Obviously, he's a starter for the Rockies a few years ago, and he was a starter for the Angels. So he's going to be great coming off the bench. That's a really good bench piece to have. I think he could even get some everyday at bats at DH or, at first base. So, yeah, I do like their bench quite a bit. Refsnyder and Reyes, I don't know that they're going to be, they're going to be reliable backups, but they're not going to be like crazy maybe starters like Cron. So the guy I want to talk about is Vaughn Grissom. Now, he wasn't in the lineup because he's injured. He's not going to be ready for opening day. Probably going to miss a couple weeks, I think, it said. So Vaughn Grissom, he was acquired in the trade for Chris Sale. The Braves traded for Chris Sale, and they gave the Red Sox Vaughn Grissom. I did a video on my channel. So Vaughn Grissom, he's an infielder, or actually, he's an infielder outfielder, kind of a utility guy, but I think he mostly plays infield, like second base. So he had a taste with the Braves in 2022. You can see what he did. It wasn't that many games, only about 41 games. So not too bad. 291, 353, 440, 121 rated runs created plus. And then he had another taste in 2023. Less games, but he didn't do quite as well. So, and he has some injury history too. Like he's been injured a lot, so that's kind of the problem. But when you look at his minor league stats, he actually crushes the ball. So, and almost consistently does. You go look at a slug over 400, close to 500 almost every season in minor leagues. His on base is pretty high. So this guy is a prototypical, second baseman, leadoff kind of guy. He could really do some damage in the middle of your lineup. And when he comes back from injury, I'm expecting him to get everyday at bats and become more of what he was in the minor leagues. Like he's gonna have to develop that, obviously, because it takes time from the transition. So, but when you look at his projections here, his best projection is essentially the steamer one, which is 285, 354, 425. With a 339 WOBA and a 110 rated runs created plus, and that's about right, I think. But you'd like to see him get to like 500 slug, like close to 400 on base, 300 average or thereabouts. So yeah, this is the kind of, I think he could be a superstar, to be honest, if he develops properly and gets playing time and can stay healthy. this guy could be a superstar for the Red Sox. I mean, obviously this year it's not going to be so much of a thing. He's not going to have that instant impact that you would want, but still better than nothing. So that's my player to watch there. And then moving on, we'll look at the Red Sox pitching. So their starting rotation: Nick Pivetta, Braylon Bello, Cutter Crawford, Tanner Houck, Garrett Whitlock. Bello Garrett on the rotation. And their bullpen, they have Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin, Josh Wasinski, Brandon Bernardo, Isaiah Campbell, Joely Rodriguez, Greg Weiser, and Justin Slayton. So overall, I think the rotation is weak, mainly because they have a lot of injuries. Lucas Giolito out for the season, just came out a few weeks ago, so that's a big loss for them, and we'll see him on the injured list. So yeah, I think the rotation might be the weakest part of their lineup, even though they did just re-sign, and we'll talk about Bayo in a bit. They re-signed him to a long-term deal. Crawford, Houck, and Whitlock have all been decent, but they haven't shown like that ace potential. So they've been decent. Pivetta is the only proven guy here, really, that's really proven himself to be like a legit starting pitcher. I think the other three have been in the bullpen at times. Like they spent some time in the bullpen. I might be wrong with that, but I know Whitlock has for sure, and Houck. I don't know about Crawford, but yeah, that's like the weakest part of their team, in my opinion, outside of the offense. And then their bullpen is one of their strengths. We Kenley Jansen at the back, Chris Martin as a setup guy, and then Joely Rodriguez was on the Mets. He was pretty decent for us, so I like that. So I want to go to the pitcher I wanted to talk about, which is Brayan Bello. Only 24 years old. He signed a 6-year, $55 million deal, $9.2 million AAV. And this guy has been in the Red Sox system for his whole career. Got a taste of 13 games, 11 starts in 2022. And in 2023, he got 28 games, 28 starts, 157 innings. He had an ERA of 4.24, 4.54 FIP. Yeah, and so like he did okay. I mean, when you look at his ratios, you see he gave a lot of homers, which is kind of an issue. Not bad on the walks, and he hit his strikeout total up. You could see in his minor league career, he was very good at striking people out. He had up to 12 strikeouts per 9, which is very good. And he's having trouble adjusting in the majors, which is, not uncommon. But if obviously the Red Sox see something in this guy, it's time to a big extension. So clearly he's gonna have to develop a little bit more and find his way. And I think he could be a legit good starter for them in the future. So we're going to be looking for his development this season. So moving on to the injured list, like I said, Vaughn Grissom on the injured list, second baseman. I was wrong with the outfield thing. I thought he was more of a utility guy, but yeah, he's a second baseman. So yeah, strain groin, going to be out for a few weeks. Giolito out for the season. Brian Mead, I think I don't know if when he's going to be back. Liam Hendricks, he's going to be out for the season, I believe. Or maybe he may come back late season. So, yeah, kind of big losses. But if they can get Grissom back and he stays healthy, he can play, every day, that's going to help them a lot. So, looking at the Red Sox organizational details, they lost Adam Duvall, who just signed a deal with the Braves, Justin Turner, James Paxton. They re-signed Rodriguez, and they lost a few other guys. And then they have a few prospects, some of them which are up already. In spring training and other places, and some which will be ready soon. So it's not bad. They have some, at least. And then, as you can see with the rankings, hitting, I think this team's gonna regress a little bit in terms of hitting. It's not gonna be quite as good as it was. Like they're not gonna be quite as high, even though I think with Yoshida and O'Neill and Devers, like they're not going to let this team fall too far back, but it's not going to be as good as last year. Starting pitching definitely not going to improve too much, I don't think, without Giolito, unless these other guys can step up and perform, have career years. And then I think their bullpen actually will improve. I feel like it's going to be better than it was. So that's the Red Sox. And as for my prediction, I'm going to put them at 75 and 87. 3 games below last year. I think they just lost. They lost too many guys. Too many guys are injured to really exceed that win total that they had in 2023. So yeah, and plus the tough division really makes it hard for them not having that talent that other teams have. So that's why I'm putting them in last place, 75 and 87. On to the next team. The Toronto Blue Jays went 89 and 73, 12 games behind the Baltimore Orioles in first place. So the Blue Jays lineup is changed a little bit. They got George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Justin Turner, Dalton Varsho, Alejandro Kirk, Kevin Kiermaier, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, and Kelvin Biggio. So the lineup changed a little bit. Justin Turner being an addition, IKF being an addition, and overall, I think the lineup needs to just overall do better. They didn't have the seasons that they were quite expecting to have, because the Blue Jays were known for their hitting, especially in 2021 with Guerrero going off, having a 1 OPS, and he hasn't performed up to that expectation as much as he would have liked to. So they need him to get back to his 2021 form or somewhere close to it. And then the rest of the lineup just needs to hit better. And I think Justin Turner helps with the power element. He's going to give you, he's going to give you some home runs. Cleffa helps with their defense and replaces the loss of Matt Chapman at third. So, I mean, he's not going to give you a fantastic hitting performance, but he will give you the defense. And then other than that, I feel like 1 through 6 is a great hitting lineup. That's a scary lineup to go through as a pitcher. So yeah, I do like the top of their lineup. I think if these guys can have career years or outperform what they did last year, it's going to be a good year for the Blue Jays. They've been pretty consistent in winning around 90 games, so I'm not too worried. And going to their bench, we have Danny Jansen, Ernie Clement, Davis Schneider, Nathan Lukes. Now, truth be told, I don't think some of these guys are going to make the team. I think these guys are going away after spring training, especially Schneider, Lukes. Clement might stay because he's out of options, but the reason why I say that is because the Blue Jays have Joey Votto and Daniel Vogelbach on their non-roster invitees. So I think Votto and Vogelbach will make the bench. They'll be on the team, and they're gonna get, they're probably gonna rotate them at DH or maybe at first base. It's gonna be having it's gonna be a rotation between Guerrero, Votto, and Vogelbach at DH. They're gonna kind of just switch them in and out interchangeably and just see what happens. I don't know how it's gonna work, or maybe one of them gets caught. I don't know, but I think they're both gonna be on the team because these guys Votto's a Hall of Famer and Vogelbach he's good enough to make be a starter on most teams. So, and he was pretty good for the Mets, even though he did struggle at the end of the year. So the guy I want to talk about is Dalton Varsho. Varsho came over in a trade from Arizona. I really liked this trade when it actually happened. I thought it was a great trade, and Varsho's a pretty good player. He was bound to have a breakout season eventually, and he didn't actually perform as well as you would have expected. He had that breakout season with Arizona in 2022, 107 rated runs created plus. He did a 235 average, 302 on base, 443 slug. It was a pretty good season. 4.8 WAR. I mean, and his defensive WAR is off the charts too. Look at that, 17 defensive WAR. That's really good. So, but then he kind of regressed offensively in Toronto, only managing an 85 rated runs created plus, and most significantly, his walk percentage went down and his K percentage went down. But I'm not really sure what the problem was, because he just wasn't as productive. I guess his swings just weren't as productive. So he's gonna need to step it up this season and prove that he was the guy that he was in Arizona, especially because this is his worst season since his rookie year, which was in 2020. So if he can be that 107 guy again, that's going to be good. And it looks like some of the projections are favoring him to do that again, which is exactly what he needs to do. At least be that just above average, give great defense because that's what he's kind of known for, right? Like he's a defensive center fielder, used to be a catcher, so yeah, he needs to step it up. He's gonna be the reason why this team is either like 90 win. It could be the difference between like 83 wins and like 90 wins, right? So yeah, moving on to the pitching, we have in the rotation Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, Chris Bassett, Yusei Kikuchi, Bowden Francis. And in the bullpen, we have Jordan Romano, Eric Swanson, Yimi Garcia, Tim Meza, Chad Green, Genesis Cabrera, Trevor Richards, Mitch White. So overall, their pitching staff is one of the better ones in the league, I think. I think Gausman, Berrios, Bassett, Kikuchi, and Francis all really good. I mean, Francis is a little bit newer, but also one commonality between all the pitchers in Toronto was that they all pitched a lot of innings. Like they have a lot of innings, either Bassett, especially Gausman, Berrios, and Kikuchi to lesser degrees, but they all went 150 innings plus, with Gausman and Bassett almost hitting 200. So that's really good for them. They have a durable rotation, and obviously missing from here is Alek Manoah because he's hurt, and he might be back later in the season. We'll see about him. And then in their bullpen, I do like their closer, Jordan Romano and Eric Swanson. They got from Seattle last year in a trade. Chad Green's pretty good, and you like their bullpen overall. I think pitching is the strength of this team. Especially if the offense doesn't really come back like it's supposed to, pitching is going to be the strength, right? So I want to talk about Alek Manoah though, because when this guy came into the league, he was really good. 3.22 ERA and 2.24 ERA. And then last year, he really struggled. Just the walks went up. I think he lost control and focus and command of his pitches, or it could have been the injuries. I don't know what it was, but he really lost control, and he kind of just turned into the pitcher that he never was in the past 2 seasons. So it's pretty strange. But yeah. So the projections are not being very kind to him, obviously, because based on what he did last year, it hasn't looked good. And yeah, they're kind of, and he's always been kind of a high walk guy, but his walks like almost tripled or doubled at least. So it's not great, but yeah, if he could get his control and strike some guys out, I mean, the best projection here is probably the Zips DC. At a 4.47 ERA. So, I mean, he's gonna need to get it together if he can come back sometime in the season, and start pitching where he was in 2023. Or 2022. That's gonna be the best for the Blue Jays, because they're gonna need him to be healthy to make a run in the playoffs, especially. So, like I said, Alek Manoah on the injured list, shoulder soreness. Hopefully, he's probably not going to be ready for opening day. I don't think he's going to be ready. So they're going to have to see when he'll be back and hope that he's healthy and ready to pitch good. And the Blue Jays organizational details, they lost Matt Chapman, Brandon Belt, who they still haven't could re-sign him. Kelvin Kamara they brought back. Whit Merrifield they lost. Jordan Hicks, Jay Jackson, Anthony Bass, who could re-sign. Adam Simber went to the Angels. And then they have a few prospects that are ready. I don't know if they're going to bring those guys up. Maybe perhaps later in the year they could bring them up. Definitely a chance. And then as you can see, their hitting in 2023 wasn't as bad as everyone says. They were in the top 10 in average and on base. They did lack in homers, which I think Justin Turner will help with. And yeah, and Darton Valshow can hopefully help with this too. And they're starting pitching. I expect that to be just as good, if not better. I mean, they did have good seasons last year, so there could be a regression. But as long as they get those 200 innings or close to 200 innings out of those guys, it's gonna be good for them. I think they're pitching the strength of their team. Their bullpen I expect to be strong again, very similar. So all that being said, I am expecting the Blue Jays to go a strong 90 and 72, which is only one game above where they were last year. I think even though they lost more good players than they gained, I think their pitching is strong enough to the point where they can survive a weak hitting team. like even though they won't hit as maybe as well, and if they do, then they'll be really good. I'll be undervaluing their team. But yeah, if as long as their pitching remains as dominant as it was, then I'm fine with them getting above their win total last year. On to the next team. The Tampa Bay Rays went 99-63, only 2 games behind the Baltimore Orioles in first place. So the Rays lineup is looking pretty good, actually. They did make some few changes here and there and made some trades in the offseason. They have Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Randy Arozarena, Josh Lowe, Isaac Paredes, Jonathan Arata, Jose Siri, Jose Caballero, and Rene Pinto. So I do like their lineup. They did add Jose Caballero, who we'll talk about in a bit. I think he could be an X factor for their team. And obviously, I do like the top 7. I would say I really like. I think I don't know about Arata. He might be one of the ones that he kind of seems like a weak DH, to be honest, but maybe he didn't have that many plate appearances last year or whatever. So I don't know. But overall, I do like it. I would say top 5 then. And I do like Jose Siri too. I don't know if this lineup is going to be accurate into what they'll actually put out there, because it seems like a guy with only a projected 8 home runs is not going to be a good DH at 6. So yeah. But I do like Diaz, Lau, Arozarena, Lau, and Paredes. These guys are all been pretty good. And, the Rays are always good. They always put together a solid team. So I'm not expecting them to struggle in any way. It's just it's just a matter of, can they put it all together again and again? And they always seem to do it. So, so moving on to their bench, we have Alex Jackson, Curtis Mead, Ahmed Rosario, and Harold Ramirez. These guys have all been around for a while here. So I think it's a good bench. And Rosario and Ramirez maybe can DH too, or so yeah, they have some options definitely, and I expect their bench to be decent. They always somehow find these guys, and you know how it goes. But the guy I want to talk about is Jose Caballero. Now he has a long history he's a long minor league journey, basically, as you can see. His minor league journey started in Arizona, then he got traded to Seattle, or went to Seattle. Now he's with the Rays from a trade. So Caballero has shown that he's not like an amazing hitter, but he has hit in the minor leagues a little bit, so he can be a hit. He can hit, but so far in the majors, from a little experience he hasn't hit that well. He probably hasn't had enough at bats to adjust. Only 104 games. So not even really a full season of a major league experience. So I'm expecting him to maybe find some hitting. And he's always been pretty decent at defense. He's a pretty decent defensive guy. Saw him play in the World Baseball Classic for Panama. So yeah, he was okay. Like he wasn't bad. But I think he has no experience yet. So he needs to play every day, and he could turn into a solid player. And I think he could be one of the players that outperform for them and really bring them to the record that I think they're going to be at. So onto their pitching, where the Rays which is actually their strength. They have in their rotation, they have Zach Eflin, Aaron Savali, Zach Littrell, Ryan Pepe, Taj Bradley. And in their bullpen, they have Pete Fairbanks, Jason Adam, Colin Poche, Phil Maton, Sean Armstrong, Garrett Clevenger, Chris Stavinsky, and Tyler Alexander. So overall, you always have to like the Rays' rotation and bullpen, because every year they find these guys and they're really good. So I'm scared to say anything negative about this team, because they're definitely going to just go out and shove. So they did lose Tyler Glasnow in the offseason to the Dodgers. So yeah, that hurts them a little bit, but I'm certain that one of these guys is going to show out, like Taj Bradley or Puppet is going to replace them, right? Like they're going to find another one. So, and obviously their bullpen, one of the best in the league last year, I think. we'll see. They did add a few guys. They had Phil Maton, Tyler Alexander, but one of the better ones in the league, Fairbanks and Adam, are really good, and Poche was good, and so yeah, I think their bullpen's not gonna change too much. They're still gonna be good regardless. So the guy I want to talk about is Ryan Pepiot. He's from the Dodgers actually, and he's come over to the Rays via what was it? Oh, via trade, right? I think it was the Michael Busch trade or something like that. But so he's come over from the Dodgers, and he has a long career. He has a good record of striking guys out. It looks like, and he could do it in the majors too. 10 strikeouts for the Dodgers in what was 9 games, 7 starts. So only 1 home run. It's a little high walk rate, but that's to be expected. And then a 3.47 ERA, not bad. And this is a small sample size, so you really can't read too much into it. And then that was in 2022. In 2023, less strikeouts, but he got the walks down, got the homers down. Well, homers were about the same, but 2.14 ERA, 325 xERA, so not bad. So I think the Rays are expecting him to get to somewhere like he was doing in 2021 in AA or AAA. 9 to 10 strikeouts per game. Lower walks, not a lot of home runs, maybe 1 home run per 9, and that's going to be solid. That's a solid like 2 or 3 starter, 4 or 5 starters. So yeah, he could definitely develop into something good. And then on their injured list, now the Rays might start off a little slow because of injury, because they have some guys injured. The guys, the positional players injured, not really a big deal, I guess. But their pitching, however, is a big deal. 3 of their best pitchers are injured and probably won't be back till late season or not at all. Like Jeffrey Springs, I think is probably no, he'll probably be back sooner. But McClanahan, Rasmussen, and Springs are all top of the line starting pitchers. Which is why they're not going to miss Glasnow too much when these guys come back. But yeah, once these guys come back, the Rays are going to be restocked, ready to go. So I'm expecting them to maybe struggle at the beginning of the season, and then at the end of the season really pick it up. So moving on to the Rays organizational details, we have Robert Stevenson, Chris Stavinsky, Jake Diekman, Ramel Tapia, Erasmo Ramirez, and Francisco Mejia. Stavinsky and Ramirez have come back. Everyone else left. And then they have quite a few guys that have come up or are coming up. So yeah, we'll see those guys. And then, as you can see, their hitting was pretty elite, pitching pretty elite, really pitching pretty elite. So I'm expecting them to repeat a similar pattern. Maybe not as good. Like there's definitely going to be some regression in places. I think the pitching is gonna suffer in the beginning of the season, especially the starting pitching, because of the loss of Glasnow and the 3 injuries that they have to their 3 main starting pitchers. So, and their hitting, I expect it to be similar, maybe a little bit less, but similar. And then obviously for the relief pitching, again, kind of similar, maybe a little bit less. But so overall, I'm predicting the Rays to put it all together like they always do. 97 and 65, just 2 games below. Because I feel like losing Glasnow has to be worth at least 2 wins, right? Like that's a big loss. That's a great starting pitcher when he's healthy. So, and not having the guys at the beginning of the season really hurt their ability to actually win like a lot of games at the beginning. Like they might struggle in April and May. So yeah, on to the next team. The New York Yankees went 82 and 80 last season, 19 games behind the Baltimore Orioles, and their lineup is looking a bit different this year. They added some players. They added Juan Soto and Alex Verdugo to go along with DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, Anthony Rizzo, Gleyber Torres, Giancarlo Stanton, Anthony Volpe, and Austin Wells. So I mean, you have to like this lineup. Obviously, it's pretty deep now with Judge. He adds a lot of depth to it, I think, and us or with Judge and Soto, I would say. So yeah, and I do like the addition of Verdugo. I thought that was a good move by them to trade for him. Surprised the Red Sox were willing to do it, but I mean, good for the Yankees, right? So I really do like the lineup. I think Judge and Soto are going to be great. Like, that's a great protecting thing. Like, no one, you can't pitch around these guys. It's going to be hard. You have to pick one to pitch to, and it's not an easy, not an easy thing to do to pick one. And I think Verdugo adds length to the end of the lineup, like 1 through 7, very dangerous. And even their 8 and 9 hitters are not anything to be, anything to mess with. So on their bench, they have Jose Trevino, I can't say his last name, Oswaldo Cabrera, and Trent Grisham. I love their bench. Most of these guys could be starters on other teams, so it's clearly going to be a good. It's going to be a good year for the Yankees. I can already tell. So let's talk about Juan Soto, the perennial Hall of Famer before the age of 26. Yeah, he's already won a World Series in 2019. He's had he's had almost every season in his career above 140 weighted runs created plus. He's not the best at defense, but it doesn't matter because his home run output is pretty good, and by the way, he's also on pace to be like Barry Bonds with all-time walks, intentional walks, and just walks overall. So yeah, he probably has the best play discipline of any hitter in the league. Like, he does remind me of Bonds in that he's left-handed and he can just hit home runs like nonstop. He doesn't really strike out that much. Pretty low strikeout rate for a guy that just hits mostly home runs. So yeah, he's not your prototypical power hitter. He's a different animal, and that's evidenced by his stats on here. You could just see he just goes off every season. Now, he did struggle a little bit in San Diego, but his struggle seasons are still like really good seasons for anybody else. So yeah, you can see the predictions: 30 mid 30 home runs, 500 slug, 160, 170 OPS, and especially with Aaron Judge right there behind him, it's going to be amazing. So on to the pitching. The Yankees have a rotation consisting of Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez. One note about the rotation is that Cole has been diagnosed with elbow inflammation or something like that, so he might be out for 1 to 2 months. But overall, I do like the rotation. They did add Marcus Stroman, who was really good for the Mets a few years ago, and he was really good for the Cubs last year, so well deserved for him. Big contract. And then in their bullpen, they have Clay Holmes, Jonathan Loaizaga, Ian Hamilton, Caleb Ferguson, Ron Mauricio, Victor Gonzalez, Cody Putti, Luke Weaver. So their bullpen, they did lose Wandy Peralta, which kind of a big loss, but I think overall, if their bullpen can stay consistent, they're going to be fine. Especially with Holmes, Loaizaga, Hamilton. These guys should all have good seasons, and the new guys hopefully can replace the guys they lost, like Chad Green. So yeah, and I know that the Yankees did struggle last year, especially on offense, but their pitching was still pretty decent, I believe. So the guy I want to talk about is Carlos Rodon. Rodon is one of the premier left-handed power pitchers in the league. He spent a lot of time with the White Sox and some time with the Giants. Always been a really great pitcher, and he doesn't give up a lot of hits or home runs. He tends to have a high walk rate, but he's usually pretty good. And recently, he's not been as much of a ground ball guy, but when he was on his game, he is more of a ground ball guy. So yeah. And as you can see, the projections for Rodon, he's going to have a pretty good season. Supposed to have like a bounce back season because last year he really struggled. He is injured. So yeah, works on. He might even have some Cy Young ability in him still if he pitches well. So, and with the New York offense being as good as I think it's going to be, yeah, he should do just fine, I think. So moving on to the injured list, there's some guys with some minor injuries. Peraza, Jason Dominguez has a big injury. He's not going to be back for a while. And then they have some pitchers on the list: Scott Frost, Tommy Canley, and Lou Trevino. So yeah, not a big deal, but they'll be happy to get some of these guys back eventually. And then on their injured list, like I mentioned, Garrett Cole injured, elbow discomfort. He's going to be getting it looked at, probably out 1 to 2 months. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. They're going to need him to come back healthy. He won the Cy Young last year, so. And then on their organizational details, they lost quite a few players. They brought back a few. Their biggest loss is probably Peralta, but overall, it's not so bad. I mean, and they could still bring back Domingo Germán. So, and as you can see, like I said, their offense really struggled. They're bottom in almost every category except home runs, thanks to Aaron Judge. And I expect that to improve immensely, actually. Probably to the high teens, if not low top 10. And they're starting pitching. I'm expecting that to improve with Stroman and with a healthy Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon. That's going to be in the high 10, low 10s, probably. Like 10, 9, 8, 8th ranked, somewhere in there. And then really pitching, I expect that to stay pretty similar, actually. Maybe go a little bit down on some categories, but pretty similar in the way they operate. So they have a few prospects coming up. Austin Wells already up. Jason Dominguez already up. So they have some other guys that might come up too later in the season, and that could be useful. So for my prediction for the Yankees, I'm going to go with 98 and 64 in second place behind the Orioles and above the Rays. Now, I did only put them one win above because I don't know that they're going to be better than the Orioles or necessarily way above the Rays, but they're definitely going to be better than last year. I think they're going to have an offensive, their offense is not going to be that bad. Like, it's not going to be, 25 in runs, 29 average, 29 on base. They're going to have more offensive production. Like, they had a really bad year last year, so they're going to swing the other way and go to like a really good year. So on to the next team. The Baltimore Orioles went 101 and 61 in first place in the AL East. And their lineup is looking really good. They actually added someone from their minor league system that's going to be supposed to be really good. So no more an overall prospect, Jackson Holliday. We'll talk about him in more depth. But their lineup is Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle, Austin Hayes, Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westberg. So I really like their lineup, and they showed that they could actually perform very well last year. So I'm expecting something similar from them, similar consistency, and hopefully some improvement even, especially because a lot of their guys are very young. So especially Holliday, Westberg, Rutschman, Henderson. These guys are all going to be even better because they've had a full season of experience now, or 2 seasons. So yeah, I'm expecting some improvement, and also, this is a really good team. On their bench, they have James McCann, Ramon Urias, Jose Mateo, and Colin Cowser. I do like their bench, pretty strong. A lot of good bench pieces here. Mateo, McCann, decent bench pieces. Urias is pretty good too. So they have a great bench. I mean, they have to, right? So I want to talk about Jackson Holliday, who spent all of his time in the Orioles minor league system, and he's performed pretty well, especially coming up through the ranks. He really, every season he starts off. So in his first season, he started off 591 slug. So Holliday started off strong in his his first season. 219 weighted runs created plus. Then he went to 130. He went up a level to 130, and then the next season in single A, he went to 226, and then he went up to A plus 162. Then he still struggled and did a little bit less in double A, and then in triple A, just above average. But this kid can really hit the ball great. He doesn't strike out too much. He gets on base a lot. He has a high slug percentage, hits a lot of home runs, so he's gonna be a good player. Like, he's number one overall rated prospect, and the projections for him are pretty kind, actually. Just above average. 100 is average in weighted runs created plus, so just above average. Decent season for a rookie. I mean, if he does these numbers, it's gonna be good. Almost the best projection looks like maybe 11 home runs or 7-8 home runs. So yeah, that's probably about right. So they're expecting this guy to develop the season, and but in 2 or 3 years, he's gonna be one of the best players on their team. So the Orioles pitching is looking actually even better with a trade for Corbin Burnes recently. They have him at the top, Grayson Rodriguez, who's going to be a really good rookie, Dean Kramer, Tyler Wells, Cole Irvin, all really good pitchers. Most of them have proven themselves. I think Rodriguez is going to really become a superstar this year. And Burnes, obviously, he has a reputation of just being one of the best pitchers in the league. So, I mean, you can't argue with it, right? And then their bullpen, they have Craig Kimbrell, Yenner Cano, Danny Colombe, Dylan Tate, Colin Perez, Jacob Webb, Mike Baumann, Keegan Akin. So they are missing Felix Bautista. He's injured, and that's kind of a big loss for them. And they're also missing a few other guys from their pitching staff, but I do like their bullpen. Kimbrell and some of these other guys have been really good, especially Colombe, Cano, Tate. So yeah, I overall, they have one of the best pitching staffs in the AL East, I think, outside the Blue Jays and the Yankees. Like, they're like one of the top 2 or 3. Probably top 10 in the league, I think, too. Especially with the addition of Corbin Burnes, who we're going to talk about more. So Burnes was in Milwaukee for 6-7 seasons, and he's a lights out pitcher. His ERA is always, pretty, except for that one season where he had 8 ERA in 2019. Always below 3, mostly. In 2023, obviously it was 3, but the guy has shown consistent, proven ability to pitch a lot of innings, 167, 200, 193 in the past 3 seasons, and all he does is win, and he wins games. He has more wins than losses. He strikes a lot of guys out, 12 strikeouts, 10 strikeouts, and he doesn't really give up home runs either. Just about 1 home run per game. When he's really on, he gives up less than 1. So he's pretty untouchable most of the time, and yeah, it's a great addition for them. So this is why I think they're going to be in first place again. And obviously, like I said, Bautista, he has Tommy John surgery. He's going to be out for the season. Or most of the season. And then they also have 2 other pitchers that are really good, Bradish and Means. Those guys, hopefully they'll come back soon. But yeah, it's kind of, Bradish is especially a big loss because he was going to be in their starting rotation, supposed to be a big part of it, and he's going to be out for the season, I think. So, but Means could come back later in the year, and that's going to give them some depth at the end of the season, which will be good. So looking at their organizational details, we have Kyle Gibson, Jack Flaherty, Aaron Hicks, Adam Frazier, Shitaro Fujimi, Michael Givens, and Jorge Lopez. Now, they didn't bring any of these guys back, but seems like they're pretty stocked. So looking at their rankings, they have, I think their hitting is going to improve some or be very similar, and then especially with Holiday, depends what he can do. And the starting pitching, it should be better. It's going to be even, imagine it being better. Yeah, they're going to be in like low top 10 in every category, I believe. And their bullpen, well, Bautista, it's going to slightly decline, but if he comes back, or if they get, a good performance out of some other guys, then I could see it staying similar. And they have a few prospects. They're obviously always bringing them up. They're one of the better teams with that. A lot of the guys here will probably be up sooner than you think. And this is the one team that actually does bring up prospects more often than not, so it's good for them. So for the prediction, I'm predicting the Baltimore Orioles to be 102-60, just one game above where they were last year. I think the team got better despite some injuries and stuff, but they didn't lose any significant players to like free agency or anything. So I expect this team to be really good in the top of the East. It's a really tough division, so it's really tough to actually predict it. Thanks for watching. Tune in for the very last prediction video, the NL East, next week, and baseball.